Can you briefly introduce yourself and what you do?
Sure. My name is Greg Van Holt, and I teach at Evergreen Valley High School. I've been teaching for the past 20 years now, and mostly world history, U.S. history, and for the past 3 years, ethnic studies.
Okay. So what drew you into this field and why specifically these subjects?
Okay. Um, for me, there's a long story and a short story. As with any history teacher, I'll give you the short story. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what drew me into the field was just sort of uh, a love and kind of I feel in some ways a skill for working with people. I felt that it wasn't until I traveled to Brazil and really worked with homeless youth there that I recognized that, you know what, you kind of do the same working with young people well. So let's see where it takes you. And so going into college, going into, at first I was thinking it was going to be political science. I wanted to be some sort of politician that was going to make change. But then I realized, and I took some history courses, and like I said, when I went to Brazil, I came back kind of a changed young man at the age of 19, and just said, I want to definitely work with people because I felt like I was teaching them. I felt like I was teaching the Brazilian youth that I came across. They had questions, and it was just like, oh, this is what life is like. Do you know Michael Jordan? No, I don't know Michael Jordan just because I'm from the United States, but I will tell you this. And so I learned from them, and they learned from me. And so if anyone were to ask me, what do you like about teaching? It's that I feel that I'm still learning. I feel like I'm a student to my students, which is why I ask the questions that I do, and I take that into account. Some things I remember well, some things I don't. But yeah, it's long story short. I know I said it was going to be short. It's about connecting with people, and I felt like that drove me into to teaching and the idea of always wanting to learn, always wanting to learn more.
Hmm. And I missed this earlier, but you said you were in what major for college? So like what did
Oh,
you
in
wanted to
college,
study?
yeah, in college, coming out of high school, taking AP US history and AP Gov, it was like I'm going to be a politician. So I went in as a poli sci major, and it wasn't until the end of that first year, before I decided that I was going to go to Brazil, where I just felt there were certain parts of it, the game of politics, or what I thought it was going to be, that I didn't want to do. And I found that with the courses I was taking on the other side, I did history, psychology as my two majors, and Latin American studies as my minor, and Spanish as well. I just didn't I didn't find that I was doing anything that I was passionate about. Still, when I decided on my major, didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that it wasn't going to be poli sci. I knew it was going to be going into politics.
Hmm. That's a very, very interesting story. But how would you recommend, someone else to also enter this career?
Okay. Um, I think that what drew me to, first social science, but as well ethnic studies, is just kind of this understanding that, and I think this stems from my time in working with homeless youth in Brazil, and like and literally like without homes. It's just this idea of just like wanting to see something go right, for a change, knowing that I can't change everything. It was a very John Lennon imagined type feel, but it was, you know what, go out and do those things that you really want to do, because the impact that I had in those 3 months that I was there, I'm not going to say it was life changing for them, but it was life changing for me. And so, for anyone that's out there thinking about going into this field, particularly ethnic studies, you have to have a desire for change, and not that you're going to be the one to do it all, because the change is going to come a lot from those you interact with.
Hmm.
I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago when I started. When I thought I was going to be, there's a movie out there called Dangerous Minds, and I was like, I'm going to be that one that changes it all. And then I just realized how much I need others. And that's what, ethnic studies is not about the me, it's about the we, and how do we all do it. Because I may know some things, you may know some things, and together we come and we build great things. Right? I recently shared that quote with my ethnic studies students, based off of how we can go first.
Hmm. And then what about, like some courses, internship, or skills that would help someone enter this?
Well, I think what is really strong, whether you like my speaking skills or not, is oral skills, written skills. I think the critical thinking skills, those are the basis for ethnic studies, social studies as well, but really ethnic studies is looking at things critically, from a critical lens, focusing on those ideas, those ways of oral and written expression, comparative analysis, those are skills that if you feel that you're good at or that you want to work on at home, this would be the direction to go with everything being there, having that understanding of social justice and having that be at the heart of what it is that you want to achieve. All right. If you find that you're debating and you always seem to take that slant, or if you find that you're reading something and it's just like, well, what about this side and this voice that I haven't heard, then maybe it's for you. That's a horrible commercial, but it's the idea that I have it innately in me where I feel it's something I want to work on after finding out one thing or another. So taking it further, all right, and that can go, I think, into any field. With ethnic studies, allowing yourself to pursue a career in law. All right, you read the laws or a lawmaker, even though I said I was going to be a politician, but a law or a lawmaker, realizing that here's where something is wrong, here's where something that I can change. All right, you could come from a personal experience, a health practitioner. So I'm now mentioning medical fields where you recognize this group and this person doesn't have access to, yet I want to attack obesity. I want to attack those those communities that are going through those circumstances. So, and yeah. So I think it stretches out. So it starts with having a gift or a skill or a desire to be better at oral, written expression, critical thinking, with the heart of it being social justice and sort of equity for all.
Mm-hmm. So now, this is generally where I would ask, what would a typical work day or work week look like? But I recognize that, ethnic studies has a lot of, big picture
Mm-hmm.
things. So, what would be some like large, overhead goals? Not just, maybe the work day, work week, but like, the end goals. What would be those?
Well, I think it starts with, and that's where I think you can pursue an ethnic studies career starting at your age, starting much younger. If you found that you've ever been part of any type of what I share with my students both in U.S. history and ethnic studies is, you know, being a participatory person, one that wants to take part in things, to see that justice achieved, can start with your interest, and it can be a bigger goal. So I may have my work day as a teacher, but I have my interest in continuing to help out a cause, all right, whether it's Californians for Justice, you name it, like you find what it is that you're interested in, and that's a project that you're constantly working on and refining because issues happen. Things come up that are different, and it's like, well, I thought I was going to be working, with just the Asian American community on this. Now we've got to deal with, say, the trauma of what just happened in Atlanta or what just happened here, and how do I deal with that? So it takes a small goal of we're going to look after this, and sometimes that goal changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where, something I would do with my ethnic studies students on a quote unquote normal year would be a participatory action research project. Very similar to what you're doing in AP Lang, which you find an issue, that's out there that you feel needs to be addressed, and you address it. Just like you and your colleagues are probably finding out right now, like, okay, well, we thought it was going to be about this, but now we're finding we need to do this and this. That's all organized. That's all. I'm not saying that that's ethnic studies, but that's what a field in ethnic studies does. It teaches you how to organize. It teaches you how to address a problem and deal with the changes that come along the way. We thought we were doing this, but along the way we found out, hey, we're doing this. That happens, I think, again, that applies to any field, having those skills, be able to do that. Like, sir, we were doing surgery, then this happened, we had to recognize,
Yeah, yeah.
make it feel more appealing to folks that are just like, oh, I think I want to go into this, but recognize that being able to do that on the spot, that's important. Just like maybe life skills, but definitely something that's used.
So, what would be your favorite part of the job? Just breaking off a little bit. What would be your favorite part of the job?
Really, my favorite part of the job, and I mention this to my students, I wouldn't say all the time, but when I do, I make sure to mention it, is seeing that light bulb go over their head, go off in their head, over their head, and seeing the impact that I have, whether it's in that moment or years down the line. All right, which is why I will acknowledge students like, hey, you brought that up, or when they acknowledge one another. All right, because I know that in teaching, all right, whether it's ethnic studies, U.S. history, I'm working with and doing my best not to mold in my image, but to mold a human being, right? For those 180 days that I have them. So that is my pleasure. When I can see them bring up, hey, this reminds me of, and I'm like, yay, we still learn that here. But even if for years down the line they're going, you know what, this is what I picked up, because you don't hear that all the time in the profession. Because when you do, you hold that part dear, and that's what I like a lot.
Mm-hmm. Now, so on the flip side, what would be your least favorite part of the job? Any particular moments?
I think my least favorite part of the job um, is dealing with um, my own upbringing. And it's going to seem really cryptic, but dealing with my own upbringing, my own experience with school, realizing that that's not, I feel like I had success. I feel like I went the route that I wanted to go, but recognizing that that doesn't work for everyone. I can't mold students, like I said, to be me. And that's newer revelation. And that's why I said, different from 20 years ago, it's just like, hey, why can't you do this? I did this, and why can't you? And just recognizing, and I think that maybe comes with age, that I'm gonna still want to create not just socially responsible, but social justice oriented students, but they don't have to be me. They don't have to see things the way that I do at my advanced age because they might be seeing it for their first time. So that's sort of my biggest, it's not something I hate, it's a challenge. It's a struggle to recognize, wait, no, I'm projecting what I want to see. So I'm saying that these are my values. And really just going, you know what? That's how you feel now. You know what? That's your 17-year-old self speaking. And that's good. Maybe that 17-year-old self stays exactly the same at 25, or maybe by the time you go to 25, you go, that's what old man was talking about. Yeah, okay, good.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I have a really short list of questions. We already through all of them. If you have any extra comments in general, about anything, it doesn't just have to be about your job as an ethnic studies teacher that you think is important to people who may be viewing this.
Yeah, well, if I can share it, and this is just more of an acknowledgement to you all, but then this is the message to anyone else that's watching it. What Spencer, Andrew, and I can go on with the names, but let's just talk about those two. But what people are doing within the group that you're in is so necessary, it's so needed. I think with everything that's out there that you can learn on your own, where is the interest that comes from the young people? Because that's what's going to drive the next passionate change of something. Like I said, can't mold you to be me. And so I think if there's anything that people can take away from this, or at least I hope they do, is that to recognize the work that your peers are putting in, if you want their interviews and such, to therefore bring out to other young people to advance their minds. You know what? That's what we do because the counseling office can't always get it right. Teachers can't always get it right. The young people, I believe we're all born with the wisdom, not all the knowledge, but we're born with the wisdom that we're going to have. And that's something that comes from within. And it's what drove you to do this. Besides, well, so-and-so is going to give me a bad grade, but that might be the case. But, for a lot of times, it's when does that internal motivation come out? Because when it's there, that's when you're ready to be, that's when you're into adulthood. We all know folks that of age might not really be considered adults because that drive may not be there for whatever reason. That's my belief, and that's what I think you should take away. That no matter what field you go into, think back to this interview or many other ones that you saw before this, and try to think about what was the motivation behind doing it. And that's the beauty of it. So an acknowledgement and shout out to you, Andrew, and everybody else that's in the crew that I didn't name. You all are great too, because of the fact that you thought of something that was missing and you're trying to make that whole. All right, so that for anyone that experiences this, they go, you know what? I have an idea too. How many other folks are like this? Let's put it into place. Goes back to what I said before. I can do something good. You can do something good together. Let's get some great things done.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Van Holt.
Career coalition. We're going to talk about what?
Yeah, yeah, thank you so much for your time, for, coming out here and, being in this interview. Uh, I felt like you shed a lot of light onto the career and, you know, your position, and, I'd like to thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I hope it made sense. Do all the editing you need to. All right. Have a good rest of your day.
You too, Mr. Van Holt.
All right.